On a sweltering summer night in 357 BC, within the royal palace of Pella, Macedonia's capital, Queen Olympias drifted into a profound slumber, disturbed by vivid and potent visions. Abruptly, a striking dream seized her mind. The night sky split open with dark clouds, and a colossal figure emerged from the tempestuous heavens. It was Zeus, the king of the gods, in all his splendor, clutching a dazzling thunderbolt in his right hand that cast blinding light through the shadows. In her vision, Olympias felt paralyzed by the divine presence, unable to turn away or stir, gripped by reverence and dread. The deity then hurled the lightning toward the queen, striking her womb directly. She awoke with a start, still sensing the otherworldly heat of the celestial bolt on her flesh, and instantly grasped that her dream was no mere fancy, but a foretelling of the remarkable destiny awaiting her unborn child. On another night, her husband, King Philip II, stumbled upon a troubling sight. Entering Olympias's quarters unannounced, he found her asleep, bare, beside a massive serpent coiled around her in an intimate and eerie embrace. Priests and seers interpreted this as an unmistakable omen that Zeus had visited the queen, assuming the serpent's form to sire a son bearing divine blood. Yet they cautioned the king to tread carefully, for the gods disapproved of mortals glimpsing their clandestine visits to the human realm, and his intrusion might carry repercussions. Philip, though unsettled by the scene, accepted that his offspring was fated for monumental and everlasting feats. Assured of the significance of the child Olympias bore, Philip soon departed to expand his domain, convinced the gods endorsed his conquests. During the siege of Potidæa, Philip, intent on capturing and securing the region, was at his military encampment when 3 vital messages arrived in a single day. The first courier, arriving from Thrace, reported that Macedonian General Parmenion had secured a major triumph over the fierce Illyrians, ensuring the kingdom's frontiers. A second messenger then came from Olympia, declaring that the king's horse had prevailed in a prestigious Olympic race, elevating Philip's fame and honor. Finally, a third emissary from Pella, the heart of the Macedonian realm, delivering the most anticipated tidings. Olympias had born a son. Hearing these reports, Philip was elated, overcome with boundless delight. Convinced these events were undeniable signs of divine favor and the greatness destined for his line, he commanded an immediate grand feast to celebrate the news. Amid the revelry and salutes, he could scarcely contain his pride and joy, for he now possessed not only battlefield successes and Olympic glory, but above all an heir whose fate promised to resound through the ages. Alexander entered the world on a warm, quiet summer night in the royal city of Pella. That same night, far off in the splendid city of Ephesus, a grim event unfolded. The magnificent Temple of Artemis, venerated as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world for its unmatched elegance and towering design, was ablaze with ferocious flames. The fire, ignited by unknown means and spread with relentless fury, devoured ornate pillars, sacred carvings, and treasures amassed over centuries. Ephesus's residents frantically sought to preserve the holy site, hauling water in pails and linking arms in human chains. But their efforts proved futile against the fire's unyielding rage. By dawn, the once glorious temple lay in charred ruins. Pella's priests and citizens, upon learning of the disaster, pondered its meaning in confusion. A rumor then began to circulate among seers and priests. The destruction occurred because Artemis herself had abandoned her shrine to journey in spirit to Pella, witnessing the birth of a child destined to alter history's course. Even the Persian Magi, ever watchful of celestial portents and unearthly occurrences, viewed the temple's ruin as a foreboding and clear omen. Convening in council, they scrutinized ancient prophecies and consulted their divinatory tablets. With voices heavy with unease and fear, they proclaimed the fire was no mere calamity, but a divine signal bearing a stark and troubling revelation. The priests foretold the birth of a child whose name would endure through time, an unstoppable conqueror and destroyer fated to challenge and dominate the nations and realms of Asia. The gods had spoken plainly, and the sages knew the destiny of empires was on the cusp of radical change. The gods had not overlooked Philip's boldness in observing the sacred and divine union of Olympias with Zeus in serpentine guise. This unintended act of intrusion, though accidental, had disrupted the holy order and offended celestial designs, prompting the immortals to devise a fitting penalty to remind the mortal king of boundaries not to be crossed. During the siege of Potidæa, a city under Athenian sway, Philip led his forces personally amid the tumult of combat. The city's walls held firm, guarded by adept archers who unleashed a ceaseless barrage upon the Macedonian ranks. At a pivotal moment in the fray, as he directed his troops at the forefront and rallied his men with resounding cries, Philip was abruptly struck by an arrow fired from within the walls. The shaft pierced his face, gouging deep into his right eye. Philip collapsed, blood pouring forth, racked by searing pain as his soldiers hastened to his side. Swiftly, the king was carried to the shelter of his tent, where the skilled and famed surgeon Critobulus was urgently called to preserve his life. With exceptional expertise, Critobulus treated the injury, averting disfigurement to the king's visage. Yet the harm was irreversible. Philip had lost all vision in his right eye. From that day, Philip carried the scar of his overstep, a perpetual reminder that even the mightiest of men must revere and heed the mysteries and limits ordained by the gods. Alexander's birth was enveloped in remarkable incidents, prophetic visions, and omens dispatched directly by the divine, lending a mythical resonance and godly essence to the Macedonian prince's origins. Foretelling and signs heralded a grand fate, suggesting this boy was destined to govern and mold the future of the known world. Yet shortly after his birth, Alexander was thrust into the stark realities of human existence. The Macedonian court, though mighty and rising, was also a cauldron of bitter rivalries, political schemes, and lethal plots. Assassinations and betrayals abounded, and Philip's very throne had been won and held through bloodshed and guile. In this perilous setting, Alexander had to master the arts of survival and cunning from a tender age, navigating a landscape where today's friends could swiftly turn into tomorrow's adversaries. The divine signs that marked his beginning would not assure his triumph on their own. His journey to glory and mastery of the known world would be strewn with obstacles, dangers, and struggles on both the battlefield and within the palace halls. Only through valor, wit, and persistence could he transform the mystical portents of his birth into a tangible legacy.